Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming to the session on interactive advertising for the Media Center platform. I'm Dan Poling. I'm from the Media Center team, and I'll give Jason Brush from Schematic a proper introduction a little bit later. He's going to come up on stage and help me describe what we've done with this. How many of you were at the keynote yesterday with Robbie Bach and actually saw the Nissan demo? Can I see a show of hands? Oh, good. A lot of you were there. So we have the interesting challenge, for those of you who already saw this, to make it interesting. We're going to add a lot of color commentary today on what you saw and what Steve Kerho from Nissan helped us introduce. Before I hop into it, though, I want to make sure you guys have some context for what we're going to talk about. How many of you know what Windows Media Center is? Another show of hands. We got a lot of you. That's good. Not quite all. How many of you who know what it is actually have Media Center and use it? It's still a number of hands. Great. For those of you who didn't raise your hand on either of those and don't know what Windows Media Center is, Windows Media Center is now shipping as part of Vista Home Premium and Ultimate editions. And it's the entertainment software designed for a full screen, what we call 10-foot experience, suitable for use on a television with remote control, and provides a great convergence experience for you to do your pictures, music, videos, and television from the PC. In this session, just give you a quick overview of where we're going, what we're going to do. I'm going to describe to you the opportunity, explain to you why we're making some investments in advertising on Media Center, and describe to you the partners. Obviously, you know already from what I said that Nissan was one of our partners, but there were more than that, so we'll go over that. I'll actually walk through the demo with you, so you'll get to see that again. Jason will then come up and describe what Schematic's role was, what they contributed, kind of the thought process that they brought to this. And then I'll take it over again, explain to you some of the foundations of the project. We've done some consumer research, and I've been very intentional about assumptions that we're testing as part of the demo that you're going to see, and describe next steps. So, the opportunity. Media Center has shipped over 30 million units worldwide as part of Windows XP Media Center Edition, and then we've shipped millions more now as part of Vista Home Premium and Ultimate. So we're getting lots of good distribution. Where we want to move next is really to drive usage of the platform. So we do buyer studies and have lots of good data about consumer usage, and we're happy with where we're at. We want to do better. So one of the best ways to do that is bring the content that people want to see. There's a lot of broadband video content experiences happening out on the web. We want to have access to that content and provide it in a great way to users on Windows Media Center. So we're focused on attracting that broadband Tier 1 on-demand video content to Media Center. We've had discussions with lots of those folks, and one of the first questions they ask is, well, how do I make money? Media Center is great, love the distribution you're getting, good product, we love it, a lot of them are using it, but we run a business here. We need to make money. So, hence, advertising investments. So what you're going to see today is directional in nature, show you some of the experimentation we're doing to create an engagement with the advertising industry and say, here's where we're at, what do you like, what do you don't, give us some feedback. And in that, we want to ultimately create a differentiated value proposition for advertisers and create compelling ways for them to get on our platform and help those content owners monetize that content and build real businesses on the platform. While we're doing that, we don't want to lose sight of the consumer. Our team that's developed Media Center over the last 6 years has had a real focus on a great user experience, and we're going to continue to do that. We don't want to leave the consumer behind and light up our experience with ads popping up everywhere. You know, we want to do it in a very clean, sophisticated way, suitable for a broadcast television-like experience. And so we're going to be very mindful about that. So what have we done? Well, we're beginning to form some industry partnerships. We'll continue to talk about that, but work with real content owners, real advertisers, real agencies, and continue to keep the consumer involved through research that we're doing. What we're going to show today is really the first proof of concept that we're coming public with. So obviously we've showed it to Nissan and their agencies and a few other people. But this is really a tool for us to create a dialogue with the industry to get the feedback we need to refine it and work towards something that will achieve our goals of attracting that great content to the platform, but also meet the goals for the content owners and the advertisers. So we'll solicit their feedback and then we'll continue to refine the solution. A little bit more about the advertisers. So Steve Kerho did a great job introducing these points, so I won't belabor it. But we believe that Media Center helps bring an audience of relevant viewers. As I said, we're 30 million plus and growing very quickly as part of Vista Home Premium. And in addition to bringing a large install base and an important audience, because our demographics actually are an interesting target for advertisers, the Media Center platform can also be addressable from advertising service platforms and create targeted scenarios. So Steve did a good job introducing that in the keynote yesterday, that viewers who watch the same programming won't necessarily receive the same ad experiences. So based on a broadband connected environment, we can do a better job of delivering relevant advertising to the consumers. Engaged viewers. So by the title of the talk, you should realize the interactivity is involved in the ad experience that we're going to show you. And at the tail end of the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about research. I think it's pretty intuitive that interactivity drives engagement, but there actually is good research support to base that assumption on. And finally, measurable ROI. So the broadcast TV world today, measurement is pretty much through Nielsen. That's kind of the gold standard. Well, when you dig into what they do, it's really a relatively small sample of people that they take data from to measure what 110 million households in the U.S. are watching every week. On the Media Center platform, we can actually have real measurements of what people are doing, measure it in very granular, fine-grained ways, and then report that back and give advertisers a lot better information than what they're getting today, and then help them segment that, understand who the audience is, and so forth. All right, the partners. So again, Nissan, you heard about yesterday. Spent a lot of time working with Nissan's agencies OMD and Tequila. That was a fun experience. These people really care about Nissan as a brand and the logos, have great feedback and opinions about how those should be visually represented in the right ways depending on the medium and the platform. And it was a great learning experience to go through that process with the real advertiser and with real agencies, to factor that into what we're going to show you here today and make sure that it adequately represents the image and the brand that Nissan wants to bring to consumers. We also partnered with National Geographic, so we have some of their programming that's part of the demo. So we actually have an end-to-end scenario, again with the real content owner, real advertiser, real agencies. And then finally, Schematic was a great solutions partner for us, pulling the demo together. What you're going to see is actually real Media Center presentation layer code. So it's in our app framework. It's a live demo. You're not seeing video. And so Schematic built that for us, and we'll talk a little bit more about all the great things that they brought to the project and helping us develop that. So I haven't talked too long, so you're going to get to see the demo twice. So a little bit of setup while I'm getting the demo going. I'm going to run through the demo one time and bring it with the consumer viewpoint or the consumer lens and talk through that a little bit. And then we'll run through it a second time, a little bit more like Steve Kerho did in the keynote yesterday, and kind of do it more from the lens of the advertiser. So I'm a viewer. I've fired up my Media Center and making a content choice and say, wow, look at that, National Geographic promotion. I'd really like to see what they have. We've mocked up a page of what a National Geographic app could look like for a consumer, create a rich discovery and navigation experience for them. Ocean's Realm looks really interesting, so I'm going to kick off that. And as that's playing, pretend that you've been watching this for 10 to 15 minutes. And what we want to do here is give the viewer a hint. We want to be transparent with them that there's an ad coming up, but give them a hint and maybe even a promotional message that actually entices them to stay with the ad experience. So as we're running through it here, I'm going to pretend that I'm a couch potato, not used to interacting with my television, so I'm not going to do anything. And you can see that you still get a great traditional TV-like experience, and the overlay at the bottom says, hey, there's more that you can do here. But if you choose not to do that, there's still a great video experience that you get to watch the engaging commercial that the advertiser has spent a lot of money to create, and you get a stop screen here. Now at this point, we have a couple choices of what we could do. We built something into the demo, and we'll talk about the assumptions around that later, but really the three choices are, if the viewer does nothing, we could just let the video go immediately back to the programming, and it would be very much like a traditional TV experience. The second option is we could have a brief period where we actually have ways to invite the user to interact at that point. So we didn't disturb this high production, expensive 30-second video or 15-second video that they've watched, but yet also give them an opportunity at the end then to choose to interact if they wished, and then have that timeout after a brief period, and then go automatically back to the programming. What we chose to do here actually is after the 30-second video has finished, to give the viewer an opportunity to exit the ad and go immediately back to the programming. So we have some options there, and that'll be some of the feedback that we'll be soliciting from the industry to figure out how to refine that. So now I'm going to switch hats again and say, okay, now I'm not a passive consumer. I'm a 24-year-old male that likes to multitask while I'm doing my entertainment viewing. I got used to having my laptop while I'm watching TV and looking up websites about the advertiser when I see a commercial, if I'm not skipping through them with my DVR. And so this new Nissan Sentra, since it was a targeted ad, it's relevant to me. Wow, I want to check this out. So take a look at some of the interior features, move around, looks great. What else do we got going here? Oh, some more clips. I'd love to see more of this video. So let's go up and take a look at the clips. Great, get to see more of the performance capabilities of the Sentra.
It's a place that separates the real drivers.
So how do I get more
from
info
the
about
wannabes?
this? I'm really interested.
A quick right, left,
we can
right, negative camera
find
series.
good ways to implement
While racking up
things
corner
at 10
Gs,
foot that you can do from a
your
remote,
allies
so
are
allow the
body
user to
hugging
easily,
front
with a
sports
single
seats.
click, sign up for
A thick
a brochure
padded
that could be
sports
sent to
steering
their
wheel.
email inbox, and they don't have to go
And aluminum
to a
pedals.
distributor, dealership, a website, or even make a phone call. Got what I wanted. Boom, I'm out of the ad. And back to my programming. So that's the consumer lens. So now let's back up and run that again and talk about it as if I were an advertiser and why I should care about this. So once again, we'll kick off our National Geographic content. So as an advertiser, here the message we really want to reinforce is relevant ads to the user. So again, as I'm targeted, can do things like a simple Nissan logo as we did in this demo, or we can create things that they're doing in broadcast TV, or saying up next, and then give you some little tagline that entices you to want to watch the advertisement that we have here. So since this is relevant, I want to hop in right away and see what I can do. And again, we have the same options. So the advertiser at this point can really highlight things, key value propositions about their product that are a lot more difficult to do from pure video that they have with traditional TV. And the viewer at any time can choose to get rid of the extra information if they want to see parts of the video. Again, explore more information. And with the advertiser, there's good research that shows that the longer you get someone to engage with your ad content, the stickier the message is, the better brand recall will be, and the better the purchase intent is. So they have the opportunity then to really let you dive deep into the things that matter to the viewer, create that great engagement, and then when the viewer is ready, go back to the programming, maximize the impact that the ad break had. And then finally for the advertiser, one last opportunity for them really to cement a top-level branding message or a key takeaway that they want to leave with the viewer. So they've got a lot of information, one last chance to just cement in a message to the viewer, and then we're back to the programming. And let's get back to the slides here. All right, so that's the proof of concept we worked on, and at this time I'd like to have Jason Brush join me on stage. Jason's the Senior Vice President of User Experience at Schematic, and so I just want to say Schematic was a great partner on this. Brought a lot of great industry experience in this space from other work that they've done. Very efficient in helping us deliver the demo, and they're one of our preferred partners for helping people deliver media center experiences. So Jason, welcome.
Thanks, Dan.
And thanks so much for coming and helping us describe the project.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So take it away.
All right, thanks. So as Dan mentioned, I run user experience at Schematic. Schematic is... Schematic is a full-service interactive agency. We work across a wide variety of platforms, ranging from mobile to two-foot experiences on the PC, to a lot of interactive television work, and then into sort of the future of environmental design and so forth. So really, we're about, I mean, Dan mentioned convergence as a word. A lot of the work we do is around making brands work across all of these platforms and having experiences dovetail really beautifully from one platform to another. So we do this not only from a perspective of design, of user experience and creative, but also from technology. As Dan mentioned, the demo which you saw was working MCML. So we've been really privileged to be a partner with Microsoft in developing a lot of stuff on the Media Center and other platforms. So Media Center in specific, from a design perspective, it's been really exciting to see recent developments and particularly moving towards Vista and WPF, but increased graphic capabilities, increased functionality from a technical standpoint in the development of Media Center has opened up a lot of opportunities for us as designers to create new types of applications and interfaces. So this is really, traditionally we've done a lot of work for TV on set-top boxes, right? So if you see the Cablevision in New York, if you use their on-screen guide, that's something that we designed for them. But those interfaces traditionally they've had to work on relatively limited hardware in which, sort of limited processing speeds, not the best graphics capabilities and so forth. So when you get to when you have a Media Center box, you're able to sort of open up a lot of opportunities there. Now that means that has some significant impact in terms of the consumer's perception of things, because when people think of television, they think of dynamic motion graphics, they think of things which are really beautiful and dynamic and interesting. And when you're talking about introducing interactivity into that, that's really crucial, right? Because you want that interaction to be as engaging and as powerful as people's perception of the programming and the content is. So I want to walk through a little bit about the making of the demo. So first I want to step back and talk a little bit about the existing broadcast ad models and how they work, both from a consumer and from a content provider's perspective. So on the upper left, you see traditional ad-supported full episode content, right? The sort of thing that you get on primetime, where the lighter green is content. It's your TV show. It's interrupted by a set number of ad breaks, and those ad breaks are 30-second spots, which, 15-second spots, which are very expensive to produce, right? They cost millions and millions of dollars. They're part of huge campaigns, and that's really, that's what the broadcast industry is built on. Then you have content like sports or something like American Idol, or in the keynote yesterday we were looking at the gaming content, right, where we saw a game on the Xbox, and you're looking at this baseball game, and you see a Subway ad, right? Now that Subway ad is something which is supporting the content, but it's not interrupting the experience, right? It's something that's sort of in the background going along. So if you're watching American Idol and the contestants or the judges are drinking out of Coke cups, right? That's this sort of advertising that's in the background. It's not stopping the experience. And then you look at paid subscriptions, right? High-value content like HBO, where you're paying your monthly fee, and you get this big chunk of content that's bookended by some promotion for additional stuff. Not that different than things like PBS or the BBC, which have different models in which the content is not interrupted by advertising as much. Now, when you think about bringing television content to the media center, all of these models could work on the media center, right? You're streaming in content, so you could have interstitial ads, you could have something in which you're paying for a subscription and so forth. But what we really wanted to focus on is evolving this ad-supported interstitial model, right? So that, for several reasons. One, when you're talking about television content, it's already kind of structured to support 30-second ads, right? You have these natural ad breaks. Writers in TV, they write around the ad model so that, I don't know how many of you have ever bought a TV show and downloaded it. Well, you'll notice that there are these moments where the narrative comes to a dramatic pause, and then it goes to black, and then it comes back, and maybe it starts again just like 5 seconds earlier than where the narrative left off, right? So you have this structure in place that we really want to take advantage of. But we also want to take advantage of the fact that we're on this platform that has really robust interactive capabilities. So looking at the broadcast models, let's go back to what people expect in terms of interactive advertising, right? So think about banner ads, which banner ads and keyword and keyword insertion and so forth. The experience by and large in advertising on the web is a fairly cluttered one, right? A lot of it's about adjacency, about having an advertisement which is abutting a bunch of content. And either it has some relationship to it or it doesn't. It's useful to the user or it's not. But it's not sort of integrated into the content. You might even get a high-value subscription service like CNN Pipeline, which is another project that Schematic designed, in which people are paying a monthly fee, $3, to get content. But getting into that world, you're being exposed to all sorts of advertisement. It's not like having this direct line into content. So before getting to the Nissan work that we recently did for Media Center for this demo, we had done some work around this, and we designed the full episode player for ABC, which made a big splash. Not only because the design was unlike most video experiences on the web. It's much more cinematic, much more simple, directional, but The real breakthrough here was the ad model, which used these interstitial ads, but rather than sort of give you an interstitial ad and have you jump back to the programming, you had this opportunity to sort of branch off and what Dan talked about in terms of the value of that to advertisers and in terms of the value of it to users as well. If you see an ad for a Nissan car and you're contemplating buying a Nissan and you have the opportunity to interact with it, boy, you're gonna take that opportunity. Now, some of the same issues of what happens when the ad ends, right? Does it pause? Does it go back, right? Because you have to have this moment where you have to be able to make a choice to say, do I go interactive? Do I go back to the programming, right? So you'll notice that. Let me go back a couple here just to show something. So you notice that in traditional television, you'll have you'll have 6 breaks for advertising. So one of the things that we did was to say, well, we're not going to have as many ads, and you're not going to get multiple ads per ad break. You're going to get a single ad. And what this allows you and there are several reasons around that. First, we don't want to have, if the user has to click to go back to the programming, you don't want to have them click next, get another ad, click next, get another ad, and then eventually work their way back to the programming. That'd be a really annoying experience, and we really don't want consumers to be annoyed by advertising. We want them to find it interesting and engaging. The other reason is that we need a point. And that is based on this requirement that we need this opportunity for people to begin engaging with it, right? So we're still working this out. I mean, we've had a lot of success with this model, and we're learning stuff about it. But this is still a 2-foot model, right? It's something in which you're using a mouse. So the opportunity to click, you're kind of leaning forward. The mouse is right there. It's easy to. You're already in that mode. It's not like TV, which is generally a sort of leaning back experience in which, this interactive ad comes on and, oh, my remote fell between the cushion, and do I have to, do I have to find it to click to go back? And so we're still working out, what people's perceptions of these things are. But this was a really great opportunity for us to try out some of these ideas in a 10-foot environment. So a little bit about our process. Just entering into the design phase of this, we wanted to come up with an interaction model. So the blue that you see in this conceptual diagram is content, and the gray is advertising. We came up with lots of different models, thinking about different ways in which it could work, right? Do we scale the video back and we open up a space next to the video? Is it an overlaid? We thought about lots of different ways to approach this. Fundamentally, we came to this idea that you would have an incremental experience, right, in which the brand, the advertising experience would introduce itself into the content a little bit before, and then it would grow, and then you'd sort of dive deeper in. Actually, in design, this changed a little bit, and you can imagine, you see this sort of stair step up going into the advertising. If you remember in the demo, you saw the bug persist afterward as well. So you could imagine another step down going back into the content. So going from that very sort of abstract notion of this is the type of experience that we want people to have, right? We're able to then dive into deeper, more detailed wireframes. Now, I don't know how many of you are designers or how many of you are information architects. One of the challenges in designing for TV and designing for things that occur within a TV watching experience, unlike the web, is that it's propelled through time, right? It has its own momentum. It's not like a web page in which you have one page and then another page and then another page, and you can have these different wireframes or diagrams which show each individual state and take them out of context, right? So we design stuff generally working in a storyboard. This is like a little subsection, so we lay this stuff out in big tabloid, and so we can really see the story of this advertisement and see how it works. it's very similar to a lot of the sort of challenges that you have designing for rich internet applications in which it's state-based rather than page-based. So what we ended up with was this idea of this bug, which follows the sort of visual language of television. I mean, this happens to be a very simple Nissan bug, but you can imagine it being animated, right, and having a real using that sort of language of broadcast graphics to communicate this stuff, so that there's a sense of depth and there's a sense of movement, that it's dynamic. This is a challenge. We do a lot of broadcast designing information graphics for sports broadcasting and so forth, doing work for video game publishers and so forth, working for EA, figuring out how to describe a lot of information in a dynamic graphic way. So what we're trying to do here, though, is something slightly different than that, is just to sort of hint that, oh, there's something there. There's something that you can interact with, and we want to use the language of broadcast design to do that. The other thing to note here is that it's purely directional, right? Designing for a mouse and designing for a remote control is a very different activity, because with a remote control, you have a fixed highlight. A mouse, you can click anywhere on the screen, right? You can move from the bottom right to the top left. There's some new remote controls that have gestural capabilities and so forth that allow you to operate it kind of like a mouse, but fundamentally, you're still left with this up, down, left, right, axial structure. So we wanted to come up with something very, very simple, right? So we have this carousel of stuff that goes left and right, and that's very extensible. Dan was talking about, well, how do we make this into, how do we make this into something which is extensible? We don't want to, so the ad that you see behind there was a very expensive thing for Nissan to produce, right? And we don't want to, we want to view one of the premises here is that the interactivity is enhancing that content rather than replacing it, right? So we have this idea of sort of layering on top of it, on top of already produced material. So it's very extensible, and you can imagine a system like this working across lots of different brands, right? That you have a simple system in which you say 30-second spot, and then you have a bunch of enhanced material, and there's a very clear, direct menuing system that allows you to bring up that stuff on top of it. Let's see, other things to mention about this. So one of the things that, another concern is, I'm sorry it's not in the frame, but if you think back to the broadcast graphic, the broadcast that you come to from this, the National Geographic bug is in the lower right. So anytime you're designing overlays like this with television content, something to be really aware of is, well, what is the broadcast package, right, of the content provider, and how is it going to work in conjunction with this? You can imagine if you were watching a sports broadcast, right? This might become really annoying because if it might be covering up a piece of information. So this is an experiment we were able to do with a very specific piece of content. If you're trying to address some of these problems in the future, working with television, boy, there's a lot of diversity out there. So and so I'm going to hand it back to Dan.
Great.
Thanks.
Steps. There we go. We got some audio. We had fun brainstorming with the schematic guys, explored a lot of concepts. We're pretty excited about where we ended up. But we didn't just make it up from scratch based on what felt good to us. We've actually had solicited some feedback from advertisers and agencies, and as we've been explaining, worked directly with a couple of those and incorporating their feedback into what we did. We've also taken a look at existing research and been participating in consumer research ourselves to say, what's going to work here. So Jason did a good job laying out TV experiences are different than web experiences. The Media Center is designed to work great on a TV, full screen with remote control, but yet it has all the advantages of a very powerful hardware platform with a two-way connected environment. So how do we take advantage of that, but still fit in with the very stylized broadcast quality experience on the television? So a little bit of relevant research. Wanted to quickly walk you through, help you understand what drove some of our decision making for what went into the demo and so forth. Cinovate and Clip Blast recently announced some information about research that they had done, and the second most thing that people found unattractive about video ads on the internet was they were just too commercial, too much of them. And we've kind of laid out the case here that if you have a higher value ad product, in order to monetize the content appropriately and make the ROI work for all of the value chain in the TV industry, you can actually have fewer ad spots, make them higher value, deliver a great value proposition and business for the advertisers, and at the same time make it better for the consumer. They don't have to sit through 5 ad pods with 6 30-second ads each in order to get a 39 minutes worth of content. We brought up ABC. They announced some results from research that they've done relative to their TV player and system that they launched last year. And typically in broadcast TV advertising, advertisers are looking at ad recall of probably 40% or less, and in many cases in the high 20s. ABC recognized 80% ad recall. There's fewer ads. It's actually easier for the recall, but also because of the interactive elements, the ad recall was better. So off the charts there in terms of ad recall for that experience. Microsoft is also participating in some proprietary consumer research through a variety of methods. Wanted to bring to your attention two. One, a qualitative study that we're involved with, and the second, a quantitative study. Qualitative means smaller sample size, more direct dialogue with the respondent. You can kind of draw out deeper information. Quantitative, larger sample size, and therefore the data maybe is slightly more representative or reliable, if you will. So on the qualitative research, and this was specifically polling response about online video ads, not surprisingly, ad length and the frequency of ads were viewed as distractors from wanting to participate in TV content through the web. Interestingly, though, I think it was actually unprompted. They said they'd like timers that counted down. So the ability to actually see how long am I going to have to spend with this ad product. And in the next slide, I'll actually come back to this point, but an interesting point of consumer research. On the quantitative side, most of the research we've done really just goes to point at the value of interactivity. And consistently, it almost doesn't matter what the exact implementation of the interactivity is. Day after recall and purchase intent go up when you introduce interactive elements to the advertising and really draw the consumer in and enable that extra engagement. Telescoping always tests very well, and in this particular research, they tested several different advertisers, I should say, different brands, General Motors and so forth. And consistently, the telescoping ads registered about 30 points higher than the control group just watching a linear TV ad. And finally, there's a social effect with interactivity. So in the research, they tested, okay, we got an interactive ad experience with the solo viewer, and then run the same experiment with one person holding the remote and then a co-viewer in the room, and wanted to find out what happens with the engagement. Do the people on the ad breaks just start talking and ignore the commercial? Do they play with it? How does the ad recall and the purchase intent factor in those co-viewing circumstances? And this is most fascinating to me in the co-viewing environment, day after recall and purchase intent actually went up. So the interactivity actually created a social effect for the people to talk about it. Oh no, try that. No, I'm interested in that. And they end up exploring more of the interactive elements that are available. And rather than drawing social aspects away from the programming during the advertisement, it actually drew them into the ad experience. So fascinating research. It just goes to show that the work that we're doing here really does have a strong value proposition for advertisers. And again, just to reinforce the point, we make these higher value ad experiences. It's actually good for the consumer. They don't have to view as many ads to watch the same content. So, wanted to highlight the assumptions that we're testing that are embodied in this demo that we've showed you today. Again, we're experimenting. We've been very intentional about what we put in here, started soliciting feedback, but it is an experiment, and we plan to continue refining it, seeking more feedback, so we don't see this as the end result or that we've answered all the questions yet. So we've thought very carefully about what are the points of feedback we want to really go out and test with the industry and with consumers. So the first one is 10-foot ads are going to be different than 2-foot. There's a lot of activity going on the web around bringing TV content to experiences from the broadcasters and from aggregators. The assumption we believe that will hold true is that a full-screen remote control ad experience is fundamentally going to be different from what's appropriate for a 2-foot experience when you're sitting at a desk with a mouse available to you. The second assumption is that the industry is going to prefer evolution over revolution. So there's an existing environment, ecosystem, tool chain, processes around how advertising gets injected into TV content today. And for Microsoft or anyone else to go to Madison Avenue and say, guess what, we have this great new thing, you're going to love it, throw out everything that you do today and do this. That will not work. People are investing, as Jason said, lots of money for these high production value TV commercials. They really want to find ways to leverage that. So what we've focused here on is evolution. And by that we really mean how are we additive to what they're already doing today? How do we offer them what they have but make it better? So offering those interactive elements obviously makes it better, as the research showed. The recall, the purchase intent, all the dimensions they care about go way up. With the Media Center, we can instrument whatever parts of the ad experience they care about, collect that information in a way that doesn't violate any privacy issues and respects the viewers, but collect that information and then make that available to the advertiser and give them a much better measurement and reporting system than what they can get from that broadcast TV advertising opportunity that they have today. We talked a lot about the bug, and everyone loves bugs. You go out and talk to the ad industry and they're like, we love bugs. Bugs are great. And think of it as a way to introduce the interactivity. Immediately after that, they also make the point, consumers have watched TV for the same way for 50 years. So TV's been around a while. We've trained several generations of viewers now to essentially sit on the couch. The remote control has been around. I have the data. I'm trying to recall off the top of my head. I think it was around 1985. It was the first year that more TVs shipped with the remote control than without. So it's really only been 20 years that we've convinced consumers to pick up a remote control and have that be the standard behavior of how you change channels on a television rather than walking across the room and turning a dial. So changes of consumer behavior take a long time. In Europe, and in particular the UK, they've introduced interactive television for quite a while, and it's a very generational thing. You'll see that the young people are using it quite frequently. The older demographics, not so much. It's just kind of what you're trained to do. So if we come with an ad experience that says to the advertiser, a consumer is forced to click in order to bring up the interactive options, the advertisers are actually a little bit leery of that and say, wow, how many years is it going to take before consumers catch on that they even have to hit a button in order to get that exposed to them? So we've been very explicit that we're going to provide these hints that interactive elements are coming, use animation and various techniques to draw the user in. In this case, we automatically populate the menu bar at the bottom of the screen, find the right balance between protecting the screen real estate for that high production value linear video content, but yet make it very clear that there's more that you can do with the ad. Let's talk again about the timer. You saw in the ad experience that we showed you here today, there was no timer. When the 30-second ad, the first one, came to completion, a button then was populated underneath the interactive menu bar that gave the viewer at that point the option to go back to the programming. This really is related to the point that 10-foot ads we think are going to be different than 2-foot. So in a 2-foot environment, a timer may be very appropriate. In 10-foot, the assumption that we're testing here is a consumer doesn't want a visually cluttered ad experience. They want it very clean, very stylized, much like you see in broadcast TV today. So that's one of the things that we'll be testing as we solicit additional feedback. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about what I'm calling the leave behind substitute. So as we've been talking to the industry, what they know today around interactive advertising is almost solely around the web and 2-foot PC environments. And they actually attach quite a bit of value to those adjacent ads, or in the case of some video experiences, there'll be a video pre-roll ad followed by the content, and while the content's playing, you'll actually get, in effect, a banner ad that some folks call a leave behind ad. And again, they place value to that. So while we're in our brainstorming mode, we address the issue, is there a way that in this full screen experience, we can create an equivalent for that, deliver that value to the advertiser, but yet do it in a way that isn't completely annoying to the consumer and creates those adjacency and clutter effects that Jason was talking about in the experience. And so what we're testing here in this demo is really the picture at the bottom of the screen over there, where we bring up, actually we don't bring up, we leave the Nissan logo persistent throughout the ad experience, and then once the interstitial part of the ad is completed, we put this optional tagline that if an advertiser wanted to cement one last branding message or product message to the viewer, they have the opportunity to do that. And so that's what I mean by the leave behind substitute. I have a feeling some people in the industry are really going to like that, some won't. Again, it's another thing that we're testing that we think would offer value, but yet doing it in a way that protects the consumer experience. So we're looking to get feedback on that point as well. I want to talk about, let's pop up a level from kind of the in and out details of the ad experience itself, and talk about at a framework level, what are we trying to do here? So the main point I really want to draw out is that standards are important in a lot of venues, and advertising is no different. The reason that advertisers in the U.S. spend $69 billion to send their messages over broadcast TV is because they've created a complete ecosystem that scales very nicely. And while it's questionable they can actually measure their ROI, they believe they are getting a return on the investment that they're making for that $69 billion. If the system didn't scale, they would probably find other ways to spend a portion of that $69 billion. They would probably still spend the same amount of money because they need to get their message across to consumers. They would just find more productive ways to spend that money. So standards are important. Scale is important. And at Microsoft, we understand that if we're working on something that doesn't scale beyond ourselves, then it isn't going to meet the advertiser needs, and we're not going to get the traction with the content community and with the advertising community that we really need for them all to make a business out of this and to achieve our ultimate objective, which is attracting that great content to our platform and delivering a strong value proposition for consumers to engage with our product and to use it and to deliver a great customer experience for them. Second point, we want to create a framework that makes it easy for advertisers to achieve the rich interaction that you saw here today. People on the web today can use a variety of application frameworks and tools to create very neat, very compelling interactive experiences. Again, for us to go to Madison Avenue with some new thing that they don't understand, they haven't used, they don't know about, and say, here, go use this thing and look what you can deliver and how valuable that's going to be, it's really not a sellable story. So the approach that we're taking with this, and Jason alluded to this a little bit, is to create some clean ways for them to plug existing assets into and achieve a rich interaction model and make it something that can scale, where they don't have to spend a ton of money to do something radically different than what they're doing today. So it kind of goes to that point of evolution over revolution. So let's make it as easy as possible for them to get on this track, to deliver these great interactive capabilities, get that consumer value proposition of higher engagement, therefore fewer ads, and have a win-win for everyone involved. So that's the approach that we're taking with this. But with that said, some advertisers want something truly differentiated, something that really sets them apart for everyone. So as we're developing this framework, another thing we're going to be very mindful of is how do we create those differentiation opportunities? How do we create ways for people to do customization on top of the standard framework that we'll be developing and allow people to do the special things? So we'll cover the 90% case, but for the 10% case that those standard formats don't address, make sure that we leave the door open for folks to do that. And finally, next steps. So pretty much talked to this. Again, we're in exploration mode. Again, we're very excited with how this demo turned out. And in the sense of a demo, it's a real app running on a real product, and we worked with real partners. But now we want to take it broader. We want to go engage more than just a very small number of advertisers and agencies, solicit broad feedback, and do the same thing with the content owners. Because as we showed in the demo, the ad experience actually, in this proof of concept, starts before the content finishes, and the ad experience carries over as the content continues. So we definitely need to get feedback from the content owners as well, and make sure that we're addressing their concerns and their needs and delivering a strong value proposition for them. The great thing about Media Center being on a powerful PC platform is we have a tremendous amount of flexibility of how we can address that feedback. So we can scale video, we can do sophisticated overlays in a variety of ways, we can bring in panels. There's all kinds of tools that we have at our disposal on Media Center to address that feedback. So it's going to be an exciting period as we get that feedback and continue to brainstorm with the industry at a broader level to figure out where we take this in a way that's most meaningful for everyone. So with that feedback, we plan to develop more proofs of concepts and demos, and it's really at that point, while we'll be doing consumer testing along the way, but it's really at that point then when we feel we have something that has done a good job for the consumer, but we've really gone out and thoroughly addressed the advertiser, agency, and content owner needs, that we want to do some brand impact studies with consumers and some very deep usability studies, and make sure that the consumers really see that this is a step forward. Because at the end of the day, Steve Kerho actually made the comment yesterday, if I'm in the market for a mattress, I love seeing an ad about mattresses. If I'm not in the market for mattresses, an ad of that nature is really just noise. Well, if all we do is create something that generates a lot of noise and it really doesn't engage the consumer, it really doesn't draw them in, get them to interact with the ad, then we don't deliver that high-value ad experience. And because we're going to have all the measurement capabilities, it's not going to take the advertisers too long to figure that out, and then they won't come to the party. So at the end of the day, it has to work for the consumer, and we're going to do the testing to make sure we're doing a good job for them. So at that point, we'll be looking to identify go-to-market partners and figure out how we bring this to the world. So thank you very much for attending today. We're going to do a Q&A. We've allowed time for that. Just a quick plug for all of you to fill out the evaluations, give us some feedback on what you liked and didn't like so we can continue to improve the MIX conference and make it even better for next year. So Jason, if you'd join me on stage, and we have a microphone there in the main aisle near the center of the room. So we have time for questions, so questions, go right ahead.
Hi, my name's Tom Conrad. I'm from Pandora. You seem like you've spent a lot of time thinking about how to bring these new kinds of advertising medium into the context of, well, the National Geographic style video content. But I think there's other things that people want to do from a 10-foot interface, whether it's browse their photos from an online service, or it's interact with an ad-supported music service, or maybe even short-form video like YouTube-style content is somewhat different than the model that you described. Have you spent time thinking about how to bring advertising into those kinds of 10-foot interfaces as well?
So I'll take that one. We have spent some time thinking about it, but when you think about premium video content, the monetization is so important for the ecosystem to consider bringing it to our platform that we felt that's the place where we need to start. So we actually did a market opportunity analysis. We looked at the business case around pictures and music and video, and actually games is a fourth very important entertainment segment for Media Center. Took a look at all of those from a market opportunity standpoint and said, okay, the first one we have to go tackle is video. So while we've given it some cursory thought, we haven't actually spent a whole lot of time thinking about, really at this level of detail, how would we bring the appropriate ad experiences to those entertainment experiences? So I don't, Jason, maybe you have some further comments.
I think it's a really fantastic question. There's a lot of work being done right now by MSOs, by equipment, by OEMs, and by folks like Microsoft to figure out, like, well, how does those other types of content which you mentioned fit into a 10-foot experience, right? How does user-generated content work on TV, right? So there's some larger questions there, just in terms of content delivery, that need to be sort of sorted out vis-a-vis 10-foot, and I think that'll help lead us into some interesting directions with advertising.
Next question.
Microsoft and Schematic comment a little about the tools that were used in creating this interactive advertisement example. Like, what are the tools available for content creators to generate MCML content?
You can start with what you guys did to create the demo, because that was a specific question.
Right.
Maybe I can take it a little broader.
Yeah, absolutely. So our suite of tools, so we will often use the same tools across 10-foot projects for different platforms, right? So whether or not we're creating something for an MSO's set-top box, or for another manufacturer's custom device or whatever, we'll often use the same tools when it comes to design, and that is generally sketching stuff out in InDesign or in Visio, or whatever sort of diagramming software you have, but really quick prototyping in After Effects or in Flash to illustrate motion is really important. We don't have it's interesting because there are no sort of, animation tools are generally relatively complex, right? They have lots of functionality, but we try to sort of simplify stuff, doing things in those tools. We then give those assets, right, things we've created in Photoshop or After Effects, and the wireframes and functional specs and everything to developers who will work in MCML to actually program it. when you get to something like, I mean, this wasn't done in expression. I mean, the idea, of course, is that you could begin to do some prototyping in expression that would then translate directly into development. But that's, in terms of Media Center, we haven't done a whole lot of that yet.
So let me maybe pop up a level and address it a little broader. So the Media Center application framework is the Media Center presentation layer, is what we call MCPL. And we have a SDK available for developers to create applications on top of, or using that SDK. In fact, in the little bag that you guys got as part of your goodies for coming to the conference, one of the things that's in there is actually an SDK that, and set of resources available for you to develop on top of Media Center. So go check your bag, make sure you got the CD, and that's what was actually used for this demo. When we take a look at advertising and what we're talking about here in particular today, this is a great question because, and I've alluded to this already, advertising is more than just what the client experiences. There's a whole ecosystem that's set up of how an ad gets from concept to creation to delivery. And so that's actually one of the points of feedback that wasn't addressed here, was really talking to the agencies and the advertisers. What are the requirements that they have for us on the tool side to make it easy? At the conceptual level, one of the things that we're doing really goes to that standards point that I mentioned. So right now, the message that we're going to take out as we solicit that feedback about what tools do we need is, for the standard formats that cover the 90% case, we're going to have a very templatized approach. Or at least that's the thinking today, that we're going to test the assumption, and make it really easy to leverage existing assets that they already have, video, text, pictures, plug that into this template. The template will have taken care of all the MCPL code issues to make it look good on Media Center, or look great on Media Center, without them having to invest a lot of time that way. And then with our SDK, then we'll look for the differentiation and customization opportunities. There very well may be other things that we have to do on the tool side to really make this compelling for the ecosystem to come to the party. And so we'll be soliciting that feedback and figure out what additional tool investments we have to make going forward. All right, any other questions? No one's lined up at the mic. We've worn everybody out, or maybe the party last night wore everyone out. Who all went to the party? Lots of people. Good. Hope you enjoyed it. So on behalf of Jason, I'd like to say thank you for coming to our session. We had a lot of fun doing it. Thanks for coming to MIX, and hopefully we'll see you next year.